I always thought danger made noise. Sirens, screams, crashing glass. But the truth is it doesn't. Real danger is quiet. It slides into your life like fog. You only notice it when it's already all around you. For me, it started on a sunny afternoon in a grocery store parking lot. Sophie was 5, all curls and curiosity, running ahead of me in her little pink shoes. She was laughing, calling back at me to hurry. I was digging for the receipt, distracted, thinking about bills and dinner and the stupid washing machine that had started leaking again. Then I heard her voice, bright and clear, say, "Daddy!" It didn't register at first, not until I looked up and saw her arms wrapped around the leg of a man I'd never seen before. He froze. Not startled, still, like someone who'd learned to make stillness his weapon. He was tall, easily over 6 feet, wearing a black dress shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, dark slacks, polished shoes that looked wrong for daylight. His hair was slightly tousled, like he didn't care enough to fix it, but knew exactly how it looked anyway. And his eyes? Cold, sharp, the kind of eyes that cataloged everything and forgot nothing. I dropped the receipt and rushed forward. "Sophie!" "No, sweetheart, that's not—" She looked up at him, smiling like he was someone she knew. "You look like my daddy." The man crouched slowly, his movements controlled, almost graceful. His voice was low, smooth, but it carried a weight that made my pulse jump. "I'm not your daddy, little one." He looked up at me then. "She shouldn't run off like that." I swallowed hard. "I know, I'm sorry. She gets excited." He nodded, still watching me. The world's not kind to excitement. Something in his tone made me pull Sophie a little closer. He wasn't threatening me, but he didn't need to. That calm, unnatural calm, was worse. He stood, adjusted his cuffs. "You live nearby? Why?" "Because I might need to make sure you get home safe." My stomach turned. "We're fine." He smiled a little then, faintly, but his eyes didn't follow. "Maybe." Then he walked away. Just turned, got into a black car idling a few spaces down, and drove off like nothing had happened. I tried to laugh it off. Told myself he was some rich guy who didn't like kids touching his clothes. But when I buckled Sophie into her seat, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Like he'd taken something invisible with him, something I couldn't name. That night, I checked the locks twice. By morning, I'd convinced myself it was fine. Paranoia was my old habit, left over from an ex who taught me that fear could be routine. But 3 days later, when I was leaving work, I saw the same car parked across the street, engine off, windows tinted. I told myself it was coincidence. It wasn't. The next day, another sighting. Outside Sophie's preschool. He didn't get out this time, just leaned against the car, sunglasses hiding his eyes, watching the kids play behind the fence. Watching her. I tried to tell myself he was just some stranger who happened to drive the same car. But the lie tasted bitter. That night I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, every light off, just waiting for something I couldn't predict. When the knock finally came, it was soft. 3 taps. Not frantic, not polite, just final. I froze. Sophie was asleep down the hall. I slipped out of bed, every step careful, and peered through the peephole. It was him. He was standing there in the same black shirt, collar open, the top button undone. His sleeves were still rolled up, forearms tensed, veins like map lines. He looked exactly like he had that day, too still, too deliberate. I opened the door an inch. "What do you want?" He held something up. "My wallet. You dropped this." I blinked. "No, I didn't." "You did. I haven't been anywhere near you." He smiled faintly. "You're careful. Good. Stay that way." I gripped the edge of the door tighter. "You're following me." His gaze flicked past me into the apartment. "You live alone?" "Don't answer questions like that." "Smart," he said, almost approving. "You should keep it that way." "What are you?" I whispered. "A cop?" "Something worse." He placed the wallet on the step. "Next time someone tells you the world's not safe, believe them." Then he turned and left. I didn't move until I heard the car start and fade into the distance. That night, I slept with Sophie in my bed, the door locked, the lamp on. She kept asking if the bad man was gone. I told her yes. I didn't believe it. 2 days passed without seeing him. Then, on the third night, someone tried to break into the apartment. It was around midnight. The sound of shattering glass ripped me from sleep. I sat up, disoriented, heart pounding, and then I heard Sophie scream. I ran. Bare feet, cold floor, adrenaline burning through me. She was standing in the doorway of her room, clutching her stuffed rabbit, eyes wide. "Mommy, there's someone—" I didn't let her finish. I scooped her up, ran into my room, locked the door, and pushed a dresser against it. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely think. The sound came again. Footsteps. Then silence. Then through the stillness, a voice. "It's me." Every nerve in my body froze. I whispered, "Who?" "You know who?" I didn't, not really. But my gut did. When I opened the door, he was standing in the hallway. Same black shirt, this time streaked with blood on the sleeve. Gun in hand. He scanned the room before looking at me. "There were men outside your window. They're gone now." My throat locked. "Gone?" "Dead," Sophie whimpered. He glanced at her, then back at me. His tone softened just a little. "You should pack a bag." "Why should I trust you?" He sighed, holstered the gun. "Because the men who were coming for you don't knock." "I do. I don't know what I was thinking. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe the fear was louder than reason." I grabbed a bag, some clothes, Sophie's toy rabbit, and I followed him. He drove us out of the city, the car silent except for the hum of the engine. I sat with Sophie asleep in my lap, staring out the window, counting the highway lights passing like seconds I couldn't get back. Finally, I said, "Who are you?" He didn't look at me. "Someone who made a mistake." "What kind of mistake?" "The kind that puts you on a list you don't walk away from." I swallowed hard. "And us?" He glanced at me then, eyes dark and unreadable. "Collateral. Until I fix it." We reached a house miles outside town. Glass walls, steel gate, no neighbors. He said it was safe. I didn't believe him. But Sophie was shivering, and there was nowhere else to go. That night, after she fell asleep in the guest room, I found him sitting in the kitchen, pouring a drink. "Tell me what's happening," I said. He didn't look up. "You crossed paths with the wrong man." "You mean you?" He nodded once. "And the people who were watching me saw your face." "That means you're a loose end." My voice cracked. "So what, you're protecting me? Or keeping me trapped?" He looked at me finally. "Both." I wanted to hate him. I wanted to run. But when his eyes flicked toward the hallway where Sophie slept, something in them changed. Just for a second. Not the cold, dangerous calm. Something else. Sadness, maybe guilt, maybe recognition. "You shouldn't have been there that day," he murmured. "Neither should you." His jaw tightened. "You don't understand. Once they mark someone, it doesn't matter who's innocent." He stood then, walked past me toward the window. His reflection in the glass was all black and shadow. "You're safe here," he said. "For now." And then softer, almost to himself. "I never meant for her to touch me." That line stuck in my head long after he left the room. I lay awake that night listening to the house breathe. Quiet, sterile, endless. I held Sophie against me and thought about the way his voice changed when he said her name. Something about it didn't feel like a threat anymore. It felt like a warning wrapped in regret. But I knew this. Whatever he was running from, we were running with him now, and I could already feel the walls closing in. I didn't know how long we'd been there before I stopped counting the days. Maybe a week, maybe 2. It was easy to lose track in that house, the one he called safe, though it never felt that way. Everything was spotless, too spotless. Cold light through glass walls, steel locks that hummed when they sealed. It didn't feel like protection. It felt like being displayed. Sophie adjusted faster than I did. Kids always do. She thought it was a vacation. Big rooms, a garden. A man who could fold pancakes into the shape of stars. She called him Mr. Luca. I never asked if that was his real name. He let her have the run of the place, but me? He kept at a distance. Always nearby, never close. I'd find him in corners, watching. Not leering, calculating. The kind of watching that made you feel like every movement meant something. One morning, I caught him sitting at the kitchen island, tie half undone, phone on speaker. His voice was steady. No one leaves the perimeter without my word. Then silence. He looked up, eyes flicking to Sophie playing with cereal on the counter. His tone softened. Make sure she gets extra milk. I didn't ask who he was talking about. I didn't want to know. After that, we fell into something that looked like routine but felt like captivity. He'd leave before dawn. I'd hear the engine fade down the driveway. By the time he returned, it was always dark. One night I waited up. I told myself it was because I wanted answers. But really, it was because I couldn't sleep without knowing if he was coming back. When the door finally opened, I saw him limping. His shirt was untucked, blood at his collar, knuckles split. Don't wake her, he said quietly. I stood anyway. You're hurt. He gave a ghost of a smile. Not the first time. You shouldn't bring that here. He raised an eyebrow. You think this is a choice? I didn't have an answer. He poured himself a drink, didn't flinch when the alcohol hit an open cut. You ever wonder what makes someone like me? He asked suddenly. No. Liar. I didn't deny it. He took a slow sip. I wasn't always this. Once, I had a name that didn't make people whisper. Then why become someone they whisper about? He met my eyes. Because in this world, power's the only thing that keeps you breathing. He said it like fact, not pride. And for some reason, that hurt worse. After that night, he stopped hiding parts of himself. The phone calls got louder, the bruises darker. Sometimes I'd see him standing in the rain outside the glass wall, head down, as if trying to wash the world off his skin. And yet, with Sophie, he was different. He'd let her braid his hair. He'd read her stories in that low voice that made monsters sound like bedtime songs. Once I caught him tucking her in and whispering something I couldn't hear. She giggled. He smiled, faint and real. It scared me how natural it looked. How easy it was to imagine him as something else. One afternoon, Sophie asked him, Are you a good guy? He paused. Sometimes. Mommy says good guys don't hurt people. He hesitated just long enough to tell the truth. Then I guess I'm not one, she frowned. That's okay. You make pancakes. He laughed quietly, and I had to leave the room before I forgot why we were here. But I couldn't shake the question that had been eating at me. Who were the men who came that night, and why did he care so much about keeping us alive? I got my answer sooner than I wanted. One evening he left his office door cracked. Papers were spread across the desk, photos, maps, names, and there, in the center, was a picture of me and Sophie. I stepped inside, heart pounding. My handwriting was on one of the pages. He'd pulled my information from somewhere. My old job, my old address, even the restraining order I'd filed against my ex. He'd known everything from the start. I turned to leave, but his voice cut through the air. You shouldn't be in here. He was standing in the doorway, expression unreadable. I swallowed hard. How long have you been watching us? He stepped closer. Since the day you crossed my path. That's not protection. That's obsession. He didn't blink. Obsession saves lives. My voice trembled. You don't get to decide what saving looks like. He looked at me for a long moment, then said softly, You think I don't know that? Something flickered in his eyes. Not anger. Grief, I whispered. What happened to you? He turned away. Someone trusted the wrong man, and she paid for it. It hit me like a slap. He wasn't just talking about me. He was confessing something. He left the room without another word. That night I packed a bag. At dawn, I tried to leave. Sophie was still asleep, her tiny hand curled around that rabbit she refused to let go of. I kissed her forehead and whispered, We're going home. When I opened the front door, he was there, waiting, coffee in hand, like he'd known. Where were you going? I tried to lie. For air, he sighed. You can't run. Not yet. Why not? You don't own us. No, he said quietly. But the people hunting me do. I froze. They think you mean something to me now, he went on. Which means you're leverage. If you go out there, they'll use you to get to me. I stared at him. And do we? Mean something to you? His jaw tightened. You shouldn't. That's not an answer. He didn't give one. We stood there in silence, the kind that stretched until it broke something inside me. Finally, he whispered, "When I lost her, I swore I'd never let anyone close again. I didn't ask who or was. I didn't need to. The way his voice cracked told me everything. After that, the air between us changed. It wasn't soft. It was charged. Dangerous in a different way. He started teaching me small things. How to recognize a tail, how to use a gun. "You're not helpless," he said once, his hand guiding mine on the trigger. "You just forgot what control feels like." It felt wrong. How right it felt. One night after Sophie was asleep, I found him on the balcony, staring out into the darkness. I stepped beside him. "You can't keep us here forever." He didn't turn. "Forever isn't the plan. Then what is?" He looked at me finally. "To make sure you live long enough to hate me for this?" I didn't know whether to scream or cry. Instead, I whispered, "You don't have to do this alone." He reached up, touched my cheek, just once, light as breath. "I already am." Then headlights flashed through the glass. His entire body tensed. "Get Sophie," he said. "What now?" The tone in his voice wasn't one I'd heard before. It wasn't the cool command he used with his men. It was fear. I ran to the bedroom, grabbed Sophie. She was half asleep, confused, clutching her rabbit. When we got back, Luca was loading a gun. "What's happening?" I asked. "They found us." The next moments blurred into chaos. Shouts, tires on gravel, a crash of breaking glass. Sophie screamed as a bullet tore through the window. He grabbed us both, pushed us down behind the couch. "Stay down!" I heard his gun go off, once, twice again. Then silence. When I looked up, he was standing in the wreckage, chest heaving, blood on his face. It was over. For now, he turned to me. "You still think you don't need me?" I wanted to hate him. I wanted to say yes. But instead, I just held Sophie tighter, because somewhere deep down, I already knew the truth. Without him, we'd be dead. And that was the worst part. The house was ruined. The glass shattered. The night still smelled like gunpowder and fear. He walked toward us, slow, limping slightly. "I'll fix this." "How?" He looked at me, really looked. "By ending it." "Ending what?" He didn't answer. Just brushed past me, grabbed his coat and said, "If I don't come back, take her and run. Don't stop. Don't look for me." Then he was gone. I stood there holding Sophie, her tiny heart pounding against mine, and realized I didn't even know his last name. But I knew this. Whatever came next, we weren't just bystanders anymore. We were part of his war. And the scariest part wasn't that he might die. It was that I didn't want him to. I never thought silence could be this heavy. It's been 3 months since that night. Since the fire, the sirens, the screaming, and the way he looked at me before everything went black. 3 months since my little girl and I walked out of that house, clutching each other like if we let go, the world would eat us alive. We've moved twice since then. New names, new school, new everything. The kind of life where you flinch when someone knocks, even if it's just the delivery guy. The kind of peace that feels borrowed. But she's smiling now. More often, anyway. She sleeps through most nights. That's enough for me. You'd think healing feels like freedom. It doesn't. It feels like guilt. Like breathing when someone else can't. Every night after she falls asleep, I sit by the window and whisper to the dark, telling it the things I can't say out loud. I tell it about him, about how he pulled me from the fire, about the way he shouted my name when I wouldn't run, about the blood on his shirt when he forced me into that car and told me not to look back. He said he'd find me when it was safe. He didn't, and I hate how I wait anyway, like some pathetic echo of the woman I swore I wouldn't be. But you know what's worse? Some nights, I think I see him. In a reflection, in a crowd, in the way a stranger turns his head. Then I blink, and he's gone, like a ghost who doesn't know he's haunting me. The world didn't stop spinning because my heart broke. Bills still need paying. Kids still need cereal. And when the light hits my face in the morning, I remind myself, I survived him. I survived them. Still, there are moments when the quiet feels wrong, like the story isn't finished. Tonight was one of those nights. I was putting my daughter to bed. She was half asleep, her fingers curled around my arm. I brushed her hair back, humming the same lullaby I used to sing before our lives burned down. She mumbled, "Mommy, he'll come back." I froze. "Who?" I asked, trying to sound calm. She smiled in her sleep. "The man who held me when I was scared. The one who said you were safe now." My breath caught. I didn't say anything. I just sat there, staring at her tiny face, wondering if maybe she knew something I didn't. An hour later, I heard the knock. 3 short taps. You ever have a moment where your heart forgets how to beat? That was me, standing in the middle of my living room, barefoot, shaking. I knew that rhythm. I'd heard it before, back in that mansion, every time he entered a room. 3 knocks. Never 2. I opened the door before I could stop myself. And there he was. He looked like hell. His black shirt was untucked, the first few buttons undone, dirt on his collar, a scar cutting through the left side of his jaw, but his eyes, those gray, merciless eyes, were the same. Except now, they looked tired. Human. "Hi," he said softly. I didn't move. "You shouldn't be here. I told you I'd come back." "Yeah, well, you're late." My voice cracked halfway through and I hated it. He gave a small nod. I had to clean up what I started. Make sure they couldn't find you again. "Did you?" He nodded again. "They're gone. All of them." For a second, I didn't believe him. Then I saw the way his hands trembled, the cuts healing on his knuckles, and I knew he wasn't lying. He'd done what he said he would. He'd finished it. I stepped aside just a little. "You want to come in?" He hesitated, like he wasn't sure he deserved it. Then he walked past me, the scent of smoke and rain trailing behind him. My little girl stirred in the bedroom, sensing him the way kids always sense things. "She's safe?" he asked. "She's sleeping," I said quietly. "And yeah, she's safe." He nodded, then looked at me. Really looked. "You look different. So do you." He half smiled. Guess the fire changed us both. For a while, we didn't speak. The silence wasn't awkward. It was thick, full of everything we didn't say. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a small silver bracelet, burnt around the edges, the one my daughter wore that night. "She dropped it," he said. "I thought she might want it back." I took it from him, my fingers brushing his. The contact hit like a pulse. "She missed you," I whispered. He stared at me like I'd just said something dangerous. "And you?" I didn't answer. Instead, I looked at the window. Outside, dawn was creeping in, soft and golden. "You shouldn't have come back," I said finally. "You don't belong in this life." "Neither do you," he said. "But here we are." Then he stepped closer, just enough that I could feel his warmth. "I didn't come back to ruin what you built. I came because I needed to see that you made it." "I made it," I said, though the words came out like a question. He reached up, brushing a stray tear I didn't know had fallen. "Then that's enough." I could have stopped him when he turned to leave. I could have said, "Stay." I could have said, "I still love you." But love, I've learned, isn't always about keeping. Sometimes it's about letting the person walk away, knowing you're safe. He reached the door, then paused. "She hugged me first, you know," he said, voice rough. That's how it started. Your little girl ran to me when the world was falling apart. I didn't let go then. I won't now, not really. And then he was gone. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at the empty doorway. But when I finally turned around, I saw my daughter standing in the hall, holding the bracelet. "Mommy," she said softly. "He kept his promise." "Yeah, baby," I whispered, pulling her close. "He did." We sat on the couch, the sun rising through the window, painting the room gold. The world outside was still cruel, still loud, but inside this tiny space, it felt almost gentle. People like to talk about happy endings. I used to think that meant everything fixed itself, the pain erased, the love shining bright like some miracle. But now I know better. Happy endings aren't about perfect. They're about possible. And for the first time in a long time, that's enough. Because we're still here, breathing, healing, loving in our own broken way. And somewhere out there, maybe he's doing the same, carrying the ghost of us like a promise he'll never say out loud. That's the story, the one I swore I'd never tell. The story of how my little girl hugged the wrong man, and how that man refused to let go. Turns out neither did I. If you made it this far, you already know this story isn't about perfection. It's about survival, love, and the people who refuse to let go when everything burns. If it left something inside you trembling or healed, even for a moment, don't slip away quietly. Subscribe, like, and stay. There are more confessions waiting, stories whispered in the dark, meant only for you.